Silence holds more power than words ever could. In a world that's obsessed with noise, where everyone feels the need to announce their every move and seek approval from others, silence becomes a weapon. There's strength in restraint, in holding back when you could speak, in working quietly when you could be showcasing your progress. The truth is, the more you speak about your plans, the more you dilute their power. When you talk about what you're going to do, you release that energy into the world before it's fully formed. Silence preserves that energy. It allows you to direct it toward execution rather than wasting it on explaining. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence because it feels like a void that needs to be filled. That's why so many people overshare, constantly seeking validation and reassurance. But when you step back and choose silence instead, you shift the dynamic. You become an observer rather than a performer. You stop trying to convince people of your worth and start building it in the quiet moments. When you stop explaining yourself, you also stop giving people the opportunity to question you. Silence takes away the opening for doubt and criticism because you're no longer inviting opinions. It's not that you're avoiding feedback. It's that you've decided your path isn't up for debate. That's where the power lies. People have this idea that strength is loud, that you need to defend yourself, that you need to make noise to prove your value. But real strength is quiet. It's the ability to remain steady in the face of criticism without feeling the need to respond. It's being so confident in your direction that you don't need applause or approval to keep going. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you reclaim your focus. You shift from seeking permission to moving with conviction. When you stop announcing your plans, you create space for the work itself to take center stage. You stop wasting energy on convincing and start pouring it into execution. Silence also creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. When people don't know what you're working on or what your next move is, they can't interfere. They can't sabotage it. They can't undermine it because they don't know where you're heading. Silence gives you the upper hand. While everyone else is busy talking about their plans, you're building yours. When the results finally emerge, it's undeniable. That's why silence is so powerful. It makes success feel effortless when it finally appears. The work that's been happening behind closed doors suddenly comes to light, and people are left wondering how it happened. But that's the beauty of silence. It protects the process so that the outcome can speak for itself. Most people will never understand the strength it takes to stay quiet when you could defend yourself. It's easy to lash out, to try to set the record straight when people misunderstand you or doubt you. But true strength is knowing that their misunderstanding is irrelevant. When you choose silence over reaction, you maintain control. You're no longer giving away your energy to people who haven't earned it. You're keeping that power within yourself, using it to fuel the work rather than wasting it on explanation. Silence also builds resilience. When you stop looking for constant feedback and approval, you strengthen your internal compass. You stop relying on external signals to validate your progress, and instead, you measure success by your own. That's when you know you've reached a new level of power, when you don't need anyone to tell you you're doing well, because you can feel it internally. That sense of quiet confidence becomes unshakable. It allows you to move through life with a steady calm, unaffected by the noise around you. There's also a strategic advantage to silence. When you keep your progress private, you protect it from interference. People can't ruin what they don't know about. Silence allows you to build without pressure, without having to meet anyone's expectations but your own. And when you finally reveal what you've been working on, it's not because you need validation, it's because the work is ready to stand on its own. That's the ultimate power move, letting your success do the talking. No explanation required. It's not easy to stay silent when you're surrounded by noise, When everyone else is broadcasting their lives and their progress, it's tempting to join in. But the more you resist that temptation, the more powerful you become. Every time you choose silence over explanation, you strengthen your focus, you sharpen your edge. And when the results finally emerge, they'll speak louder than any announcement ever could. That's the power of silence. Holding back until the work is undeniable, and then letting the results speak for themselves. Patience is the foundation of strength. In a world that glorifies instant gratification, the ability to wait, to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty, and to keep working in silence while nothing seems to be happening is rare and powerful. Most people give up not because they're incapable, but because they can't endure the wait. They expect immediate results, and when they don't see them, they lose faith. But real progress is rarely obvious at the start. It's the work you put in when no one's watching that sets the foundation for everything that follows. That's why patience is so important. It allows you to stay consistent when there's no visible reward yet. Patience is about understanding that growth happens beneath the surface before it ever becomes visible. A tree doesn't bear fruit the day after you plant the seed. It takes time for the roots to establish themselves, for the trunk to strengthen, for the branches to form. But the growth is happening even when you can't see it. The same thing happens in life. When you're working towards something, whether it's a goal, a skill, or a change in your mindset, the results are never immediate. And that's where most people fail. They expect progress to feel linear, to see immediate feedback, to feel validated by the world. But the truth is, the most important growth happens in silence, beneath the surface, when no one else can see it. Most people quit too soon because they mistake silence for failure. They assume that if nothing is happening on the surface, they must be on the wrong path. But that's not how growth works. Patience requires trusting the process, even when you can't see the results yet. It's about staying committed when you feel like nothing is changing, knowing that the work you're putting in today is shaping the outcome you'll see tomorrow. It's not about blind faith. It's about understanding the natural rhythm of progress. Just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean you're not moving forward. Some of the most profound shifts happen internally before they ever become visible externally. Patience is also about control. When you're patient, you're in control of your emotions. You're not reacting to the ups and downs of the process because you understand that progress isn't always obvious. You stop getting discouraged when things take longer than expected because you understand that growth isn't about speed, it's about depth. The deeper the roots, the stronger the foundation. And that takes time. Patience gives you the ability to keep going without needing constant reassurance. You stop looking for signs that you're on the right path because you've already decided to stay on it, no matter what. There's strength in resisting the need for instant feedback. When you're patient, you're not seeking validation from others. You're not asking for permission or approval. You're simply doing the work because you know it's necessary, and that creates a sense of quiet confidence. When you're patient, you stop feeling threatened by other people's progress. You stop comparing your timeline to someone else's. You understand that everyone's path is different, and that means the pace will be different too. Patience frees you from that toxic cycle of comparison. You're no longer in a race because you've decided to define success on your own terms. Patience also creates resilience. When you learn to wait without losing faith, you become unshakable. Most people crumble under pressure because they don't know how to sit with discomfort. They panic when things take longer than expected, and they give up when the results don't come quickly enough. But when you master patience, you learn how to stay calm in the face of uncertainty. You don't let setbacks define you. You don't let delays discourage you. You stay steady because you know that progress isn't always obvious, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. When you're patient, you also become harder to manipulate. People can't sway you with quick rewards or temporary victories because you're focused on the long game. You're not looking for shortcuts or easy wins. You're committed to real, lasting growth. That kind of mindset makes you untouchable. You stop reacting to the noise around you because you've learned to trust your process. You know that the results will come, not because someone else says so, but because you've put in the work. That's the power of patience. It allows you to maintain control of your energy, your focus, and your confidence. Most people will never understand the strength it takes to remain patient when you could be chasing quick validation. But that's what sets you apart. When you stop needing immediate results, you become free to focus on the work itself. And that's where true mastery happens. That's when you start to separate yourself from the crowd, when you stop reacting to the world's timeline and commit to your own. Success isn't about speed, it's about consistency. And patience is what allows you to stay consistent when nothing seems to be happening. That's the edge. That's the advantage. And when the results finally show, people will assume it happened overnight. But you'll know the truth. It was patience that made it possible. Discipline is the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. Without it, patience fades and focus crumbles. Discipline is what carries you through the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Because motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes depending on how you feel. But discipline is consistent. It shows up when you don't feel like it. It pushes you forward when everything in you wants to stop. That's why discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation lights the fire, but discipline keeps it burning. And in silence, when there's no one watching, no one encouraging you, no one praising you, that's when discipline matters most. Discipline is about creating a standard for yourself and holding yourself to it, even when no one else is holding you accountable. It's about deciding who you want to be and aligning your daily actions with that vision. The hardest part isn't starting, it's continuing when the excitement fades and the results aren't visible yet. That's where most people break. They give up when the momentum slows down, thinking that if they aren't seeing progress, they must be doing something wrong. But discipline is about showing up even when the progress is invisible. It's about trusting the process enough to stay committed, even when there's no proof yet that it's working. Most people think discipline is restrictive. It's not. Discipline is freedom. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency. It allows you to create a structure for your life, a rhythm that you can rely on even when everything else feels uncertain. Discipline is what allows you to take control of your mind and your actions. When you develop discipline, you no longer feel controlled by your emotions or your circumstances. You stop making decisions based on how you feel and start making them based on what you've committed to. That shift is powerful because it separates you from the people who are constantly chasing comfort and avoiding discomfort. Discipline isn't about punishing yourself. It's about building yourself. It's about teaching yourself to lean into the discomfort of growth rather than running from it. When you're disciplined, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I'll start when I feel ready." You stop giving yourself an out. You create a new standard, one that isn't based on convenience or ease, but on what you've decided matters. That's the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. Success isn't about talent or luck. It's about the ability to stay consistent when it's hard. And that's what discipline creates. Discipline is also about focus. In a world full of distractions, the ability to focus deeply on what matters is rare. Most people are scattered, pulled in 100 different directions, reacting to everything that comes their way. But when you're disciplined, you control your focus. You decide where your energy goes. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop getting caught up in the noise because you've already decided what your priorities are. Discipline allows you to say no to distractions, to temptations, to anything that threatens to pull you off course. That's the kind of strength that sets you apart. People misunderstand discipline because they think it's about restriction, but the truth is, discipline creates space for freedom. When you're disciplined, you're not constantly stressed about whether you're doing enough. You're not weighed down by guilt or regret because you know you've shown up fully for yourself. Discipline gives you the confidence to trust yourself because you know you've put in the work. It creates peace of mind because you know you're not relying on luck or chance. You've built a foundation that's solid because it's been reinforced through consistent action. That's the kind of confidence you can't fake. There's something powerful about being disciplined in silence. When you're quietly putting in the work without announcing it to the world, you create an inner strength that's unshakable. You stop seeking validation because you already know what you're building. You don't need people to see it yet, because you trust that the results will come, and when they do, people will assume you got lucky or that it happened overnight. But you'll know the truth. You'll know about the early mornings, the late nights, the days when you didn't feel like it but showed up anyway. You'll know about the sacrifices, the consistency, the quiet effort that no one else saw. That's what discipline creates, not just results, but a level of self-trust that no one can take from you. When you develop discipline, you stop looking for shortcuts because you understand that mastery is built through repetition. It's built through doing the same thing over and over again until it becomes part of you. That's why discipline is so powerful. It transforms not just your results, but your identity. When you're disciplined, you become someone who follows through. You become someone who keeps promises to themselves. And that changes everything. Because when you trust yourself at that level, there's nothing you can't create. There's nothing you can't overcome. Discipline isn't just about success, it's about becoming someone you respect, someone who can look in the mirror and know that they showed up fully for themselves. That's the win. That's the reward. And that's why discipline is everything. Growth happens in silence, away from the spotlight. When you step back from the noise and focus inward, you give yourself the space to evolve. The world is loud. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. Social media has made it easy for people to seek validation constantly. Every success, every workout, every win, it's all posted and shared as if the accomplishment isn't real unless other people witness it. But that's where most people get lost. They start living for the applause instead of living for the growth. They chase attention instead of substance, and in doing so, they weaken the very foundation they're trying to build. Because true growth isn't loud, it's quiet, it's internal, and it happens when no one is watching. When you stop seeking validation from others, you give yourself the freedom to grow authentically. You stop shaping your progress based on how it looks to others and start focusing on how it feels to you. That's a shift most people never make. They become prisoners to other people's opinions, constantly adjusting their actions based on how much approval they get. And that's dangerous because it makes your growth fragile. When you need applause to keep going, you're handing over control of your life to other people. You're letting their response determine your direction. And the moment the applause fades, which it always will, you'll lose your momentum. That's why you have to anchor yourself internally. You have to create a foundation that isn't dependent on other people's reactions. Growth in silence gives you that power. It allows you to focus entirely on your process without getting distracted by the outcome. When you grow in silence, you detach from the need to prove yourself. You stop trying to convince the world that you're making progress. You stop trying to get people to notice. And that's when you actually start to grow, because your energy shifts from seeking approval to building yourself. You become more focused, more intentional, more consistent. You start doing things because they matter to you, not because they'll impress someone else. And that's when the real transformation happens. The most powerful growth is quiet. It's not the flashy before and after moments. It's the day-to-day work that no one else sees. It's the hours spent refining your craft, strengthening your mind, and sharpening your skills when no one is clapping for you. It's easy to stay motivated when people are cheering you on. It's easy to push forward when you're getting attention for your efforts. But can you stay consistent when no one notices? Can you keep showing up when the results are invisible? That's the test. That's where most people quit. They assume that if no one sees it, it doesn't matter. But the truth is, what you do in silence is what shapes your future. The work you put in when no one is watching determines the success you'll experience when the spotlight finally comes. Growth in silence requires patience. It requires trust in the process. It means accepting that results won't come overnight, and it means being okay with that. Most people are addicted to quick results. They want the win now, the recognition now, the success now. But meaningful growth takes time. It's uncomfortable because it challenges you to let go of instant gratification. It forces you to settle into the discomfort of not knowing when the reward will come. But that's exactly why growth in silence is so powerful. It separates you from the people who give up too soon. It builds a level of resilience and inner strength that makes you unstoppable. When you grow in silence, you learn to value the process over the outcome. You stop focusing so much on how far you have to go and start appreciating how far you've already come. You start measuring success differently, not by how many people notice your progress, but by how consistent you've been with your effort. That shift changes everything, because when you focus on the process, you stay grounded. You stop chasing the high of recognition and start finding fulfillment in the work itself. And that's when success becomes inevitable. The most dangerous thing you can do is make your growth dependent on other people's approval. Because people are inconsistent. Their opinions change. Their attention shifts. If you rely on them to keep going, you'll find yourself constantly starting and stopping, rising and falling based on how much validation you're getting. But when you grow in silence, you take back control. You create a level of stability and consistency that can't be shaken by outside forces. You become self-sufficient. That's the goal. To be able to motivate yourself, to sustain your own momentum, and to trust your own judgment even when no one else understands it. It's powerful to succeed in silence because it creates a strength that's built from within. When you grow without the need for recognition, you become untouchable. You don't crumble when people doubt you. Because you've built your foundation on something deeper than approval, you've built it on consistency, discipline, and trust in yourself. That's what growth in silence gives you. And when the results finally start to show, people will assume it happened suddenly. They'll think you got lucky. They'll think you had some advantage they didn't. But you'll know the truth. You'll know about the quiet work, the unseen effort, the silent growth that built the strength they're seeing now. That's the power of growing in silence, and that's why you don't need to prove anything to anyone. Let them watch from a distance. Let them wonder how you did it. They'll never understand the work you put in, and that's exactly why you'll keep winning. When you understand that not everyone deserves access to your journey, you protect your peace and sharpen your focus. There's a reason why successful people don't broadcast every step they take. It's not secrecy, it's strategy. Not everyone is meant to know your plans, and not everyone deserves a front row seat to your growth. That's not about arrogance, it's about protecting your energy. When you give too many people access to your process, you open yourself up to distractions, opinions, and negativity that you don't need. People will question your choices, they'll criticize your progress, and some will even try to sabotage it, whether intentionally or not. That's why you have to be intentional about who you allow into your space. Because not everyone watching you wants to see you win. It's tempting to share everything. We're conditioned to seek connection and approval from others. When you're working hard toward a goal, it feels natural to want to tell people about it, to get support, encouragement, or just recognition for the effort you're putting in. But the truth is, not everyone will understand your vision. Not everyone will see the value in what you're building. And the more you share, the more you open yourself up to influence. Even the most well-meaning people can unintentionally derail you. A simple comment like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" or "Maybe you should try something else," can plant doubt in your mind. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it's hard to unroot. That's why silence isn't just about humility, it's about protection. When you keep your process private, you maintain control over your mental space. You protect your confidence from the influence of other people's doubts and fears. Because here's the truth. Most people project their own insecurities onto others. When someone tells you that your goal is unrealistic, it's not because it's impossible, it's because they can't imagine themselves doing it. When someone tells you to give up or slow down, it's usually because they're uncomfortable with the idea that you might succeed while they remain stagnant. That's not your problem to solve. That's why you have to be careful with who you let into your circle. Some people will celebrate your progress, others will resent it, and you don't owe anyone access to your growth just because they feel entitled to it. Growth requires focus, and focus requires boundaries. You can't grow if you're constantly defending your choices or explaining your vision to people who were never meant to understand it in the first place. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey, and that's okay. You don't need to seek validation from people who aren't doing the work. You don't need to justify your progress to people who have never stepped outside their comfort zone. You have nothing to prove, and when you stop trying to prove yourself, you reclaim an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy. That's the energy you need to sustain your momentum. That's the energy you need to push through the hard days and keep going when the results aren't showing yet. It's powerful when you learn to separate your growth from other people's opinions. When you stop needing applause, you become immune to criticism. That's why silence is so important. It's a shield. It keeps you focused on the work instead of the noise. It allows you to trust your own instincts instead of getting lost in other people's expectations. Most people don't understand what it takes to build something from nothing. They don't understand the discipline, the sacrifice, and the internal battles you have to fight every day. And because they don't understand it, they'll try to minimize it. They'll try to bring you back down to their level. Not because they hate you, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable. That's why you have to protect your process. Keep your circle small. Share your wins with people who have earned the right to hear them. Let the rest of the world wonder how you did it. There's strength in mystery. When people don't know your next move, they can't interfere with it. When they don't know how you're building, they can't criticize your process. And when they don't see your progress until it's already finished, they have no choice but to respect it. That's why you don't have to announce every step. You don't need to give people updates. Let your results speak for themselves. Let your growth be the proof. Because the truth is, most people are more interested in watching your progress than supporting it. They'll sit back and observe. Some will root for you. Others will hope you fail. But none of that matters. Their opinion doesn't change the outcome. Your work does. The greatest advantage you have is the element of surprise. When people underestimate you, you hold the power. When they assume you're not making progress, you gain the upper hand. Let them believe you're stagnant. Let them think you've lost momentum. And then, when the time is right, let your success speak for itself. That's why silence is so powerful. It gives you the space to operate without interference. It allows you to build without the weight of expectation. And when you finally step into the light, no one will be able to deny the work you've put in. Not everyone deserves access to your journey. Not everyone deserves to know your plans. Keep building, keep working. Let them doubt you, let them question you, but don't explain yourself. Don't defend your process. Let them watch from a distance. Let them see the results when it's already too late for them to stop it. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you become unstoppable. Most people spend their lives trapped in a cycle of trying to impress others, chasing approval, and constantly wondering how they're being perceived. It's exhausting. And worse, it's pointless, because no matter how hard you try, you will never control how other people feel about you. You can do everything right, and some people will still criticize you. You can reach incredible levels of success, and some people will still resent you. That's why freedom begins when you realize that you don't need anyone's approval to live your life. When you stop needing permission, you take back control. You start making decisions based on your values, not other people's expectations, and that's when you unlock a whole new level of strength. Validation is a trap. The more you chase it, the more control you give away. When your sense of worth is tied to how other people respond to you, you become a puppet. Their praise lifts you up, their criticism brings you down, and you lose the ability to trust your own instincts. That's why so many people struggle to make decisions. They're not thinking about what's best for them, they're thinking about how it will look to others. They're wondering, what will they think if I fail? What if they laugh at me? But here's the truth. Most people are too wrapped up in their own insecurities to care about yours. And the ones who are sitting there waiting for you to fail, they're doing that because they're not brave enough to try themselves. That's why you need to stop caring about what they think. Because the moment you stop seeking their approval, you become free to pursue what actually matters. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that success will silence the critics, that if you just prove yourself enough, people will finally respect you. But it doesn't work that way. Success doesn't quiet the noise, it amplifies it. The more you achieve, the louder the critics become. That's why the real power isn't in proving them wrong. It's in not needing to prove anything at all. When you reach that place where you're at peace with yourself, when you're confident in your path and no longer seeking approval, you become untouchable. People can criticize you, and it won't shake you. They can misunderstand you, and it won't bother you, because you know who you are, and you know why you're doing what you're doing. That's the kind of strength that can't be faked. And that's why it makes people uncomfortable. When you stop seeking validation, you change the dynamic completely. You stop reacting to other people's opinions. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for being different. And that's when people really start paying attention. When you carry yourself with quiet confidence, when you know your value without needing to announce it, that's when you become magnetic. People will start wondering what's different about you. They'll notice the way you carry yourself. They'll see that you're not rattled by setbacks or bothered by criticism. And some of them will respect you for it, others will resent you for it, but none of that matters. Because your sense of worth no longer comes from them, it comes from within. It's not easy to stop caring what people think. We're wired to seek connection and acceptance, and at some level, that's not a bad thing. But there's a difference between seeking connection and chasing approval. You don't need to shrink yourself to make people feel comfortable. You don't need to adjust your dreams to fit someone else's expectations. You don't need to tone down your ambition because it makes other people insecure. If your success makes someone uncomfortable, that's their problem to deal with, not yours. Your job is to focus on your path. Your job is to stay aligned with your vision. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, so be it. The more comfortable you become with not being liked, the more dangerous you become. Because when you stop trying to fit into other people's boxes, you start building your own world. You stop asking for permission, you stop explaining yourself, and you start moving with a different kind of energy. People notice that, they sense it, and the ones who are meant to align with you will. The ones who aren't will fall away, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Growth requires separation. It requires leaving behind the people and the mindsets that are no longer aligned with where you're going. That's why it's so important to stop seeking validation, because when you stop needing other people's approval, you become free to grow. You become free to become the version of yourself that you were meant to be. There's a reason why the most powerful people in the world don't explain themselves. They don't ask for permission. They don't need to justify their decisions. That's not arrogance, it's clarity. They know who they are, they know what they're working toward, and they understand that not everyone will get it. That's the energy you need to carry. Quiet confidence, focused ambition, a willingness to be misunderstood. Because at the end of the day, the people who doubt you now will be the same ones asking how you did it later. That's why you don't need to argue with them. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. Just keep moving, keep building, and let your results speak for themselves. You don't need approval. You don't need applause. Let them doubt you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. None of it matters, because the truth is, you already know who you are, and once you stop seeking validation, you become unstoppable. You don't need to announce your greatness. Just keep building, keep rising, and when the time is right, let your success make the noise, while they watch from afar, wondering how you did it.